The forest of Silverwood was older than any map, older than the kingdoms that lay beyond its dark borders. Under the cold glow of the moon, the trees whispered secrets no human ear could fully understand. Shadows stretched like fingers across the mossy ground, and every rustle of leaves seemed to carry a warning. Yet Leora, cloak tight around her shoulders, moved deeper into the forest with steady, determined steps. Her heart beat faster, not from fear, but from a strange pull she could not name, a pull that had led her here for reasons she only half understood. She had heard the stories all her life. The villagers spoke of a monster chained beneath the moon, a creature that once had been a king. Relagers, ones, and Tenjur, when the Tenjur, once. Some said he was a wolf, others claimed he was a man cursed by a sorceress who had envied his power. Everyone warned to stay away. But the stories, filled with fear, had only made her curiosity grow. And tonight, with the moon full and pale as silver, Leora could no longer resist. As she stepped into a clearing, the wind fell silent. The air was thick with magic, shimmering like faint threads of light she could almost touch. In the center of the clearing, glowing chains coiled around a massive figure, their light, silver and blue, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her own heartbeat. He was enormous, even in his bound state. Tall as any knight, but with the grace of a predator. His hair was dark as midnight, and his eyes, when they finally opened, shone like amber flames. Even through the chains, he exuded power, danger, and a loneliness that cut her chest like a knife. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low and rough, carrying the weight of someone who had lived through centuries of pain. "These chains are not for you to break." Leora hesitated, studying him. She could see the tension in his muscles, the restrained fury, the sorrow. Yet beneath it all, she glimpsed something almost human, a vulnerability no one else had dared to witness. "I am not here to hurt you," she said softly. "I want to help. I want to." He growled, a sound that vibrated through the clearing and made the leaves tremble. "Help me? No one can help me. I am bound by a curse older than this forest. I am not a man. I am not a beast. I am both. And if these chains are broken, I will lose control." Leora stepped closer, ignoring the prickling of fear along her spine. Her hand hovered over the chain that glowed like frozen moonlight. "Then let me stay with you," she said. "Even if you cannot be free, even if you are dangerous, I cannot turn away." The king in chains, Arik. She learned his name through the whispers of the wind, studied her. He could smell the truth in her heart, the courage she carried despite her fear. Most humans would have fled. Most humans would have screamed and run. But she did neither. She only looked at him with steady, unwavering eyes. "You are brave," he said, almost a whisper. "And foolish. One does not walk into Silverwood seeking a cursed king and survive. The woods will claim you. The creatures of the night will not forgive you." "I do not care," she said. Her fingers brushed the cold chains. "If these chains can be broken, if you can be freed, then I will do what others have feared to try." The air thickened around them. The chains pulsed under her touch, glowing brighter, humming as if alive. Eric's amber eyes widened, a mixture of fear and hope flickering across his features. "Do you understand what you risk?" he asked, his voice trembling with the strain of restraint. "I am not just a man, not just a wolf. The curse makes me both, and both can destroy. One touch, one mistake, and—" "I understand," she interrupted, "but I have to try." For a long moment, neither spoke. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the wind still, the moonlight shimmering like silver dust over the scene. And then, slowly, Eric's massive form, shivered. He shifted slightly in the chains, as though testing her resolve, testing whether she could withstand the power held back by the glowing metal. "You should not do this," he said again, voice low, almost desperate. "If the chains are broken, there is no turning back. Once I am free, I may not be able to control what I become. I may lose everything that makes me human." "I will not leave you," Leora said, her voice firm despite the rapid beating of her heart. "I am here. Whatever happens, I will not run." Her words seemed to reach something deep inside him, something buried beneath centuries of rage, fear, and sorrow. Slowly, he tilted his head, studying her with intense amber eyes that seemed to see everything. The courage, the hope, the longing that she had never spoken aloud. And for the first time, he did not growl, did not pull away. He allowed her presence. The chains began to hum louder, vibrating against her fingertips, reacting to her will. Silver fire licked the edges of the metal, and the forest seemed to lean closer, as though waiting for what would happen next. Eric's body tensed, muscles rippling under the strain. His amber eyes widened in both awe and fear. "You do not know the danger," he said, his voice catching. "The curse is part of me. If the chains are broken, if I am freed, the wolf will come fully, and it may not recognize mercy. I will face it," she said simply, touching the chains with both hands now. She could feel the pulse of magic, the heavy weight of centuries binding him. She closed her eyes and focused, drawing on the strength she did not know she had. She imagined him free, standing tall as both king and wolf. His burden lifted. The chains flared, brighter than moonlight on snow, and for a heartbeat, the forest went completely silent. Eric's chest heaved, his breath coming fast, and his body trembled violently. A low growl, deep and resonant, shook the clearing. Leora felt the raw power of him flowing through the chains, the pull of the curse tugging at her very soul. She held firm, her heart steady, willing him to survive, willing him to trust her. And then it happened. With a crack that echoed like thunder across the woods, the chains split. Silver shards of light scattered in the air, falling like tiny stars. Eric's body arched, and a roar burst from his throat, a sound that was part man, part wolf, terrifying and magnificent all at once. The moonlight seemed to respond, wrapping the clearing in a halo of silver, as if blessing the moment or warning of what was to come. Leora stumbled back, eyes wide, heart racing. The creature that had been bound before her was now fully unleashed. Fur glimmering with moonlight, eyes glowing amber like fire. Eric the wolf stood towering above her. His powerful body radiated both majesty and danger, his muscles coiled like springs, his gaze fixed on her. And yet, despite the intensity, he did not move to attack. Not yet. "You," he said, voice hoarse, breaking through the growl. "You freed me." "Yes," Leora whispered, awed and terrified at the same time. "I did. But I am not leaving you. I will help you, if you let me." The Wolf King blinked slowly, studying her with a mix of curiosity, caution, and something new, something fragile and human. He lowered his massive head slightly, nostrils flaring as he smelled her courage, her heart, her resolve. The moonlight shone down on them both, casting shadows that danced across the forest floor. And in that silver glow, Leora understood a truth she had not known before. Freeing him had bound their fates together. Eric shifted, the sound of bones and magic intertwining, his human form beginning to return in the moonlight. He faltered, collapsing slightly, and Leora caught him instinctively, her arms wrapped around his trembling shoulders. His amber eyes met hers, wide and intense, searching for trust, searching for mercy, searching for something he had thought lost long ago. "Be careful," he whispered, voice barely audible. "If the curse senses weakness, it may take everything. I will not let it." she said firmly, looking up into his eyes. We face it together. And as the wind stirred, carrying the scent of ancient trees and distant stars, the forest seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting. The moon hung heavy and silver above them, casting its light over the clearing where a cursed king had been freed by a mortal girl. And though the forest had been silent for centuries, it seemed to hold its breath, anticipating what would come next. For in the quiet of the woods, Leora felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew, in her heart, that freeing him was only the beginning. The wolf was free, but so too was something darker, something more powerful than either of them had faced before. And as Eric shifted fully back into his human form, his amber eyes locking onto hers, he spoke words that would haunt her forever. If you are with me, he said, voice low and raw, then there is no turning back. The moon blazed overhead, silver fire spilling across the trees. And in that light, the first chapter of their shared destiny began, a destiny filled with power, danger, longing, and the promise of a bond neither could yet understand. And then, as she lifted her trembling hands to steady him, the chains, now broken, flared once more. Eric's body arched violently, a roar echoing through the silver wood, and in that moment, the forest itself seemed to tremble. The wolf was free, and Leora's heart was chained to his fate. The morning after the chains were broken, Silverwood felt alive in a way Leora had never known. Birds she had never seen before sang among the towering trees, their songs echoing like tiny bells. Light filtered through the thick canopy, glinting off dew on the moss, turning the forest into a silver-green sea. Yet, the beauty of the woods could not hide the danger that lingered in every shadow. Eric, now free from his chains, moved with a cautious elegance, both man and wolf bound together in one body. His amber eyes constantly scanned the forest, alert to every movement. Leora walked beside him, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and wonder. She had never seen anyone like him. Not human, not beast, not king. The air around him seemed alive, charged with magic and ancient sorrow. For all his strength, there was a weariness about him, a sadness that weighed heavier than any chain. She wanted to ease it, even if she did not know how. You must understand something, Arik said quietly, his voice rough but calm. Freedom does not mean safety. The curse that bound me is not gone. It waits inside me, always. One wrong move, one lapse of control, and I could hurt you, or anyone else. I know, Leora replied, trying to sound braver than she felt. But you are not alone anymore. Not while I am here. He regarded her carefully. In his eyes, she saw not only the flicker of trust, but the faintest hint of longing, something he had buried beneath centuries of anger and isolation. It is foolish, he said, shaking his head slightly. No human has ever faced this curse and lived. And yet, I am still here, she said softly. And I will not run. The forest seemed to hum around them, as if the trees themselves were aware of their bond. Eric's ears twitched, a subtle reminder that the wolf within him remained alert. He walked a few paces ahead, then turned, meeting her gaze. Very well, he said. Then you must learn quickly. The world beyond these woods is not as forgiving as the trees. My kingdom believes me dead. The moment they know I am alive, they will come for me. And they will not care about you. Leora felt a chill, but she did not falter. Then, I will stay hidden. I can follow your lead. Eric's expression softened slightly. You are braver than most, he said, and perhaps more foolish. His lips curved, almost imperceptibly, in a faint smile. They traveled deeper into the forest, toward ruins that had once belonged to kings older than anyone could remember. Crumbling stone walls were covered in ivy, and the air smelled of earth, rain, and old magic. It was here Eric brought her his sanctuary and refuge. "This is where I have hidden for decades," he explained, his voice echoing softly against the broken stones. "Here, the curse cannot reach me fully. The forest shields this place, but it cannot shield you. You must remain vigilant." Leora nodded, her gaze sweeping over the ruins. She could feel the power in the air, the magic that had been dormant, now awakened by the breaking of the chains. And within her, a strange connection stirred. The moment she had touched the chains, something had shifted, not just Eric. A warmth, almost like a whisper of the moon, pulsed within her chest, and she knew it was tied to him in ways she could not yet understand. Days passed, and the bond between them deepened. Eric taught her how to sense the forest, how to read its subtle signs, and how to move quietly, like the shadows that followed them. In return, Leora offered something he had long forgotten: compassion, patience, and unwavering courage. They spoke little of the past. Words seemed unnecessary when a glance could convey understanding. When a hand offered in support could soothe centuries of pain. But one evening, as the moon rose high and full over the ruins, Arik spoke of the curse that haunted him. "The sorceress who bound me was clever," he said, sitting on a broken stone bench. His gaze lifted to the moon, reflecting in his amber eyes. "She did not merely want to imprison me. She wanted to ensure that I would never find peace. She planted the wolf inside me, a creature of instinct, rage, and hunger. I am neither fully human nor fully beast. I am torn, always." Leora reached out, placing her hand over his. "But you are still you," she said gently. "And you are not alone anymore." For a long moment, he said nothing, as if weighing her words. Then he sighed, a sound that carried the weight of centuries. "Perhaps you are right," he admitted. "But even with trust, even with courage, there are forces in this world that will not let me rest. They will come for me, and they will not stop with me." Leora's grip tightened. "Then we face them together." He studied her hand, then her face, and for the first time, he allowed himself to relax, not fully, but enough to show a flicker of something human. "You are not afraid?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I am," she admitted. "But fear does not mean I run. I stay because I choose to." Arik's gaze softened, and he let out a low hum, something between a growl and a sigh. It was the closest he had come to admitting he needed her. That night, the forest whispered around them as they slept within the ruins. The moon shone high, casting silver light across broken walls and moss-covered stones. In her dreams, Leora saw visions of Eric not just as the wolf, not just as the king, but as a man who had suffered for centuries. She saw his loneliness, his sorrow, and the fire of his spirit, bound and struggling. She also saw herself, reaching out to him, guiding him, and somehow, saving him. Morning came too quickly, bringing with it a shadow that neither had anticipated. The sorceress who had cursed Eric had learned of his freedom. Her magic moved like mist through the air, subtle but deadly. She sought him, and by extension, her eyes would fall upon Leora. "You must leave," Eric said abruptly, his amber eyes sharp. "I cannot let her find you here. The moment she senses your presence, she will strike." "I will not leave you," Leora said firmly. "We face this together, remember?" Eric's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to protect her, to send her away to safety, but he could not. The bond that had begun in the forest, born of courage and trust, held them together stronger than he expected. "Very well," he said, voice low. "But if you are caught, if anything happens to you, You will not lose me, she said. I promise. Their resolve was tested sooner than they expected. As twilight descended, a strange wind swept through the ruins. The trees seemed to lean in closer, and the shadows deepened. Then a flash of silver fire streaked through the air, aimed directly at Leora. She barely managed to duck behind a stone pillar. Eric reacted instantly. His body shifted, muscles coiling, claws digging into the ground. The wolf rose within him, instincts raw and powerful, eyes glowing brighter than ever. He moved with lightning speed, shielding her from the attack. The sorceress's magic collided with his presence, a storm of energy and fury that shook the forest. Leora's heart pounded as she watched him. He was magnificent, terrifying, and utterly devoted to protecting her. And in that moment, she understood something undeniable. She was no longer just a bystander in his world. She was part of it, and he was part of her. The attack ended as suddenly as it had begun. The sorceress's magic dissipated into the night, leaving silence in its wake. Eric knelt beside Leora, breathing heavily, amber eyes searching her face. "Are you unharmed?" he asked, voice rough. He studied her for a long moment, and then a low growl rumbled from deep within him, not of anger, but of warning. "This is only the beginning," he said. "She will come again. And next time, she may not be so easily kept at bay." Leora nodded, though a shiver ran through her. She had faced danger before, but never like this. Never had she felt so deeply connected to someone so responsible for their safety, and so utterly drawn to them. As they settled back into the ruins, the moon rose high and full, casting silver light over broken stone and moss. Leora could feel the pulse of magic still lingering in the air, tied to Eric, tied to the bond that had formed between them. She knew, with certainty, that their fates were entwined and that the path ahead would be filled with both peril and power. And as the wind whispered through the trees, carrying a faint echo of the sorceress's laughter, Leora realized the truth. Freeing Arik had not just liberated him, it had bound them together in a destiny neither fully understood. The wolf was free, and the king was alive. But the enemy was near, and in the shadows, a plan was already forming, a plan that would test their trust, their courage, and the strength of the bond that had begun beneath the silver moon. The ruins were silent under the moonlight, but the air thrummed with tension. Leora sat beside Eric, her hand resting lightly on his forearm. The bond between them had grown stronger since the sorceress's first attack, a bond forged from trust, courage, and shared fear. She could feel the pulse of his wolf spirit within her, a quiet warmth that reassured her even as danger approached. Eric's amber eyes scanned the trees, every shadow, every flicker of movement. He had learned to sense the magic of the forest, but even he could not predict the power of the sorceress who had cursed him. "She will return," he said quietly, his voice a low rumble. "And next time, she will not hesitate. She seeks the throne, but more than that, she seeks to claim you. She knows the bond we share. She knows what makes me vulnerable." "I will not let her take me," Leora said firmly, her eyes meeting his. "And I will not let her take you." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we must be ready. You must trust me completely, Leora. The curse is not gone. It waits inside me. One lapse, one moment of fear, and it could consume me." "I trust you," she said softly, and in her heart, she meant it. The night deepened, and the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, from the shadows, a shimmer of silver light appeared. The sorceress had come again, her presence like ice over the forest floor. Her eyes glowed with cruel amusement, and the air around her pulsed with deadly magic. "You dare defy me?" Her voice rang through the ruins, sharp and cold. "You think a mortal girl can break what I have cursed? You are mine, Eric shifted, his body coiling like a spring. Fur bristled along his arms and shoulders, his wolf instincts ready to defend. Leora stepped beside him, feeling the pulse of his power within her, steadying herself. "Not while I am here," she said, voice strong despite the fear that curled in her stomach. The sorceress laughed, a sound like splintering ice. "Then you will fall together." Magic erupted from her hands, a torrent of silver fire and shadow. Eric leapt forward instinctively, placing himself between Leora and the attack. His amber eyes flared, and a roar, both human and wolf, shook the clearing. Leora felt the surge of power as he moved, every movement graceful yet deadly. But the sorceress's magic was cunning, twisting around the forest like smoke. She struck with precision, aiming at the bond that tied them, trying to sever the connection they shared. Leora stumbled backward, fear flaring in her chest, but Eric's hand caught hers instantly. His strength was overwhelming, yet gentle, grounding her. "You are stronger than you know," he said, voice low, eyes never leaving the sorceress. "Trust yourself." Summoning her courage, Leora closed her eyes and felt the pulse of Eric's wolf spirit within her. She focused on the bond between them, letting it flow through her like a river of silver light. The magic in her chest, born from the broken chains and the moon's blessing, responded. She raised her hands, and a shield of silver energy flared around them both, repelling the sorceress's attack. The sorceress hissed in frustration. "Impossible!" she shouted, stepping closer. But Leora did not falter. She felt the power inside her grow, fueled by love, trust, and determination. The bond with Eric had changed her. She was no longer just a mortal girl. She carried a fragment of the wolf's spirit, a piece of the curse itself, but she wielded it with clarity and purpose. Eric moved beside her, their movements synchronized, their bond a single force. Together, they faced the sorceress. Every attack she launched was met with unity. Her magic, his power, their shared courage forming a shield stronger than any spell. The ruins glowed with silver light as they fought. A dance of strength, trust, and defiance against a darkness that had long held him captive. Finally, the sorceress unleashed her most powerful spell, a vortex of shadow and silver, meant to overwhelm them both. Leora's hands trembled, but she felt Eric's steady presence. He placed a hand on her shoulder, grounding her, giving her strength. Together, they focused their combined power, channeling it into a single, brilliant surge of silver light. The vortex collapsed in a flash, the sorceress thrown back by the force. She shrieked, a sound of fury and disbelief, before disappearing into the night, leaving only a faint echo of her threat. Silence fell over the ruins, broken only by the heavy breathing of the two of them. Eric's amber eyes softened as he looked at Leora. "You were incredible," he said, voice low, filled with awe. I could not have done it without you." Leora smiled, her hands still glowing faintly with residual energy. "We did it together," she said. "I was never alone, and neither were you." The moon rose higher, casting silver light over the ruins. Auric shifted fully back into his human form. Yet even now, the wolf remained a part of him, strength and spirit intertwined. He knelt before her, not as a king demanding loyalty, but as a man expressing gratitude, trust, and something deeper he had long denied himself. "You freed me," he said, voice low and raw with emotion. "And you stayed when no one else would. You are extraordinary." Leora reached out, touching his cheek gently. "And you are extraordinary too," she said. "But none of that matters without what we have now. This bond, this trust." He took her hand, lifting it to his lips. "Then stay," he whispered. "Stay with me. As my equal. as my partner. Not as a mortal girl, but as the one who shares my heart, my destiny. Will you stand by me? Tears welled in Leora's eyes, but she smiled. I will, she said, her voice steady. I choose this. I choose you. The forest seemed to sigh, the wind rustling through the trees as if in approval. The ruins glowed faintly with moonlight, a testament to the power of trust, courage, and love. And then, as they stood together, a new moon rose on the horizon, a moon unlike any the world had ever seen. Its silver light formed a pattern in the sky, a sigil of prophecy, ancient and powerful. The air shimmered with magic, and both Eric and Leora felt a pull toward the heavens, a reminder that their story was far from over. The prophecy, Eric whispered, his amber eyes reflecting the strange moon. It speaks of you, of us. This is only the beginning. Leora squeezed his hand. Then let it begin, she said. The wolf spirit within Eric stirred, calm now, tempered by her presence. He shifted once, standing fully as a man again. Yet his connection to the wolf remained a symbol of his strength, his freedom, and the bond they now shared. The ruins of Silverwood stood silent in the moonlight, bearing witness to a story centuries in the making. A cursed king freed by a mortal girl, a bond forged in magic and trust, and the promise of a future where love, courage, and destiny were intertwined. As the new moon's sigil glimmered above them, both Eric and Leora understood a truth that was both thrilling and terrifying. Their lives would never be the same. They had faced darkness together, fought forces beyond imagination, and emerged stronger, united not only by circumstance but by choice, by courage, and by love. And though the shadows still lingered beyond the forest, and though the world outside awaited with challenges yet unknown, they knew this, whatever the future held, they would face it together, bound beneath the moon, free in heart, and united in destiny. The wolf was free. The king had returned, and the queen had been chosen not by fate alone, but by courage, compassion, and a bond that no curse could ever break. The forest exhaled, and the night held its breath, as if honoring the beginning of a legend that would be told for generations, a story of trust, love, redemption, and the silver light of the moon that had brought them together.